Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guests are the directors of the long-anticipated remake to the Stephen King horror film Pet Sematary. Kevin Kölsch and Dennis Widmyer team up with Jason Clarke, Amy Seimetz, and John Lithgow to bring the fan-favorite reanimation yard back to life. Let's take a look.
I remember my birthday party. Church was out on the road. And everything went black.
It's okay now. Are you back?
Back from where?
What's going on?
There's a place rage brings things back. Hug your daughter.
Are you happy, Mommy?
I should never have shown you that place.
What you did?
If you cheat death, there's a price to be paid.
I needed more time with her.
Sometimes dead is better. If you've done something, Lewis, it's not too late to undo it.
Everybody, please put your hands together for the Pet Sematary directors, Kevin Kölsch and Dennis Widmyer. Hey, guys.
How are you?
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations. No small feat. You remade and did really well. What for some people is a classic. I mean, it was a classic of my childhood. It was one of those kinds of movies that you knew about before you saw it because older kids in the neighborhood told you it was the scariest thing. And then when you saw it, everybody was doing an impression of the little kid holding the scalpel afterwards.
Can we hear you do it?
What is his line?
No fair, no fair.
Right. I remember I played with Mommy. And now I'm going to play with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's
loves that one.
Isn't it the little kid from Kindergarten Cop too?
It is, yeah. And
He says-
Mercury Rising and Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, I think, and Miko Hughes. Yeah, he had a good run.
He had a pretty good run there. I love the idea that Now I'm going to Play With You is also the same voice of Boys Have a Penis, Girls Have a Vagina. That's really funny to me now that I think of it. So when you set out to make a movie like this, what are some of your rules? Do you feel the pressure of diving into this world that's already been talked about that for a lot of people is a favorite? Or do you have to sort of remove all of that from your brain and just kind of start from the ground and build it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a mix of both. I think that when you start out and you're doing an adaptation of a book and something that has already been made into a previous movie, you want to kind of give people something new. So you're looking for a new take on it, a fresh take on it, something that'll give people a new viewing experience because that movie was a classic for us as well. It's a great movie. It exists. So we want our movie to give people something different when they see it, a different viewing experience. But at the same time, you don't want to deviate too far from the original source material. You want to stay true to the essence of the novel so that people that are fans of Stephen King still feel like they're getting Pet Sematary. But at the same time, while everything is a balance of keeping true to the spirit while trying to be fresh, also there is a point where at some point you have to push things aside and go, well, now we're making our movie and we're here every day in the trenches dealing with the cinematographer and the actor and you're making decisions on the fly and they have to just be decisions that benefit your movie. You know?
Well, like so often, whether it's a remake or not, writers say that eventually the movie kind of starts telling you what it needs to be and what it wants to be. Do you still find that to be the case when the movie is based on two pieces of source? I mean, it's based on one piece of source material, but there is another source as well that you could use.
Yeah, I mean, like filmmaking is hard. When you're on set every day, you get to a point where, like Kevin said, it's like you're in the trenches. It's a war, and by then, hopefully, you've done your prep, and everybody knows the source material. They all know the essence of what you're trying to do. And really, as long as you're keeping the themes and you're keeping the metaphor, it doesn't matter how you get there. It just matters that you get there, and at the end of the day, you're telling Pet Sematary.
What was the war like for you guys on set? Like, what was the biggest battle that you had to fight?
I think the biggest battle almost always when you're making a movie, and this is something like a lot of people ask us what it was like jumping from our small indie movie up to a studio movie. And while, there's very different things about it that you have to get used to when you show up, you go, wow, this is things on a much bigger scale. The crew's so much bigger and all this. At the end of the day, I think the thing that's in common with this movie and our small movie and any movie is you're always just racing the clock. It's always time. And especially with this movie, people always say don't work with kids and animals, but but actually, the animals and the kids we got in this movie were actually great. But the thing is, the reason why I think it's tough working with kids is because that they have to work on a shorter schedule, and we have a movie that's so heavily dependent on a child actor, so our days are just getting shorter and shorter. There were certain days where it wasn't like we could just shoot the child out and then go shoot other stuff, where when we were done with her, there was nothing else we could really even shoot that day, so it's just kind of like our days were just shorter than a lot of average film days were at times.
At that point, do you find yourself trying to rewrite or come up with ideas so that you can keep shooting that day?
No, because I think that the schedule is still the schedule. Like, you still need to get done the things that you need to get done in a certain amount of days. So, I mean, if we were writing new stuff, then we'd just be shooting additional stuff, but we would still be on the same tight schedule to get done the scenes that are already scripted.
Do you find, so often I think people ask that question of going from a small, low-budget movie to a big-budget movie and how difficult that is, but isn't it at the same time it's really all about what you're just getting in the frame and making sure that you get your shots at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, Starry Eyes, our film before this, was here as far as budget goes compared to this. So, so it's odd where you see the differences. Like, we always joke around that, when you're making low-budget films like that, you pretty much are eating the same food every day. Whereas when you're doing something like this, they suddenly come around at 11 o'clock in the morning with, amazing food, and you're like, wait, we're having lunch already? And they're like,
I have a choice of what kind of breakfast sandwich?
Yeah, and they're like, no, that's the midday snack.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not lunch. And so by the time you get to lunch, you've eaten so much already, and you're full by then, and you're so the food definitely gets better.
Yeah, on Starry Eyes,
Mom's
I think we
pasta.
had. Yeah, on Starry Eyes, I think we had the same chicken every day. They just had a different sauce on top.
It was always more sriracha, please.
Do you find with a larger budget and with material like this that it's an even more collaborative process?
Yeah. Well, one of the good things about two directors is Kevin and I have been collaborating for 20 years, so we know how to do it. And filmmaking is the definition of collaboration. And yeah, it's a much bigger crew, and so there's just a lot more people on the set. And so, but when you have the added value of working with somebody for over 20 years, and you know how to do that, we kind of shifted into that pretty easily, where it didn't matter that the crew was 3 times bigger. We're good at working with a lot of people.
How did you guys start working together?
It started back on Long Island. Me and Dennis both grew up there. We met through a mutual friend who kind of was like, oh, you write scripts? Kevin writes scripts. And kind of in the mid-'90s on Long Island, you didn't meet a whole lot of other people that were writing scripts. We kind of started showing each other our work. And then we started doing this thing where on Friday nights where all of our friends might have been out, drinking or going to the bars or something, we were like, hey, let's be productive. Let's get together. We got together with our word processors. This was a while ago. It was before laptops.
Free laptop.
And we would get together and we'd go hey, we'll get our own beers here and put on music, and instead of all these other people that are going out, we'll just hang out here and we'll work while we hang out. And then we would show each other our pages at the end of the night. We would give each other feedback. And then when we were giving each other feedback, it came to the point where we were helping each other get through parts where we didn't really know where to go with the story and go well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And then it just kind of naturally progressed to where we were sort of writing the scenes together.
That's such a weird thing about writing, and it's something that I've noticed recently, is that when it's your own work, it's so hard to recognize where to go and how to fix it and change it. But when you're talking to somebody else about their work, you're just try this, do that, figure this out. And the other person is just it's like a machine gun for them because they're there's so many things to take in.
It's another benefit of two people is that, we could be critical with each other. It's you are able to step outside of yourself and actually hear it through the lens of somebody else. And then, reread it and then read it out loud together. It's you're performing for each other.
Yeah. We have friends that write solo, and then they're always asking us or other people to read drafts, more so than we do. Like they need it on each step of the way, like this draft or that draft, because they don't have another person that they're like bouncing their thing off, or that's telling them, hey, there's actually a problem here, or there's a loophole, or this doesn't make sense. So
Yeah, you really are able to workshop it more.
Do you ever want to say that, like, hey, why don't you find a co-writer? I don't really want to read your 5th draft.
Yeah, I recommend it to everyone.
So was it always horror for the two of you? Was it always suspense and horror that you found that you were writing together?
No, not really. I mean, we always joke around that because we love horror so much as like audience members, I think there was an intimidation factor there where it was sort of like, all right, we know the type of horror we like, so let's just go watch that rather than do it. And we were always reading horror. We were, writing short stories with horror.
How would you define the type of horror that you liked?
I guess it's the type of horror sort of like Pet Sematary, where it's, it's emotionally driven, it's character based. There's always like a metaphor at stake, something that's being said through the film that we're kind of masking through the genre. We really love all types of horror films. So the type of horror films that we gravitate towards are the ones that are not necessarily concept driven. They're the ones that are more character driven.
Yeah, for me, it's relatability. I mean, like, you look at this, you want relatable characters. I think when you see this family, when you see Jason and Amy at the beginning and Jute, like, you believe them as a family, you care for them. They feel like real people. And then also the horror is a relatable fear that we all have. It's, in this movie, it's the fear of death. It's how we deal with death. It's the grieving process, which unfortunately is something that everybody's going to have to go to. So I think that where the horror in this movie, it goes into supernatural territories, but it's all stemming from like a universal fear that we all could relate to.
Right. It's not like they move into a house and there are ghosts that happen to be there and that has to get explained later. There's a whole first act really in the beginning of the second act that detail with the inner workings of this family and what they're afraid of, and then what happens to trigger the actual horror that comes within the movie. Yeah. How difficult is that for you guys? I mean, when you set out to make this, that was one of the things that I was always surprised by when I went back and rewatched the first Pet Sematary. It's a long wind to get up to when things start taking place. And I think that you guys found ways to interject some of the scares early on. How did that work for you in the scripting process or figuring that out?
Yeah, I mean, still, if you look at it, I mean, in the book, the big pivotal event that happens kind of late in the book, past the halfway point. And even in our movie, actually, if you look at the runtime, it happens at about the halfway point. So I think that's good that you said that it feels like it's moving at a good clip, a good pace, But in actuality, it's really kind of following the structure of the novel, where there is a lot of lead-up time and getting to know the family.
But I don't remember, forgive me for not remembering exactly, but in the original movie, and maybe it's in the book, is there that backstory that is actually like you have some really terrifying images that come up in this backstory that's sort of like where some of the horror comes from in the first act of the movie before the actual pivotal moment. Is that in the original material?
And the backstory, you mean
Amy's backstory?
Oh,
Hilda.
Yeah, that's in the original material, but I don't think it comes in that early. I think what we were doing was we were trying to create a sense of dread, right? In the book, Stephen King says, or he has Jud say, no one knows how far that place's influence reaches, that burial ground, right? And this is a place that kind of like, and he even says, Jud says, I might be responsible for your son's death because I took you to that place and we brought the cat there. And I don't know if I'm going into any spoilery territory, but it's like a chain reaction that this place pulls at you. Once you go there or once it gets a hold of you, you can't kind of stop.
It's not just literal manifestations that come out of the ground. It creates an entire world around you that is spiraling and horrifying.
So we were trying to create a sense of dread that just living in proximity of these woods kind of infects this family. So because Zelda is in the original and in the book. But if you look at Amy's character, she is married. She does have 2 kids. So she's not like this broken person because of this backstory and this grief. It's tucked away inside her somewhere, but she's still a functioning person. So there kind of has to be this question of why now? Why are these things coming back to her now, these flashbacks and stuff? So we wanted to seed it in earlier that the move and seeing these kids in the procession, burying the pets and being close to death and seeing the way these people in this neighborhood dealing with this pet cemetery deal with death, it starts bringing this back out of her mind.
Those repressed memories
sort of come
up. So you guys have made, how many films have you directed together now?
Features, 3, and then a documentary, if you want to consider that, would be a 4th, and then a whole bunch of shorts together. But we really consider Starry Eyes our first official film.
Can
We
I-
did one before that, but it was like a small.
Did a few television episodes too.
Yeah, some TV too.
And an anthology.
What is the like worst argument the two of you have ever had creatively? If you can talk about it, or how do you deal with those things? Because everybody fights and argues over creative issues.
Probably the one time that you ate the last donut. There
Yeah.
was a donut and
He said creative.
You could have like the nice. You could have
that
like
donut would have creatively inspired me, Kevin. Right?
You could have the most copacetic creative relationship in the world, and it was really like motherfucker ate the donut.
We've honestly, I'm not just saying this, we've never really had a big knockdown, drag out fight. It's never really happened. There's been differences about ideas or things like that, but we do all that before we even get to set. So that's the thing, is like if you just do your prep, and you have all those arguments beforehand, and you arrive at the best ideas together before you even begin making the movie. Then when you're on set, if you were an actor on set and I was off doing something else, and you needed an answer to a question, Kevin would probably give the same answer I would give, because we've already hashed it all out. And so you just really have to do your prep and make sure you're on the same page.
So even if it's like a surprise question because actors can come up with some pretty surprising questions at times where you're like, you need to know that? Why? What do you need to know that for?
Yeah, when they ask surprise questions, that's when I usually go like, hold on one second. I was just going over here to talk to the cinematographer about
never
something.
show up.
Well, what do you think? How would you answer this? Really? Okay, if you say so.
Hold on, I was just going over here to do so and action. Just do it.
Exactly.
Just do
No
it.
surprises.
Yeah. How have you found working together with actors? Like, have you just found that it works naturally for the two of you, or did you realize after your first project or after doing it you had some learning curves that you had to go over?
Well, I mean, I think that, like Dennis was saying, like we're collaborative by nature, working as a partnership. So it's kind of like when we work with actors, it's like we'll go up to the actor, like the two of us, and a lot of times it's not just kind of like us going like, I think the scene should be this. It's us talking to them.
It's a discussion,
and
yeah.
it's a discussion. So that's why you say, like, when you say, what if they surprise you? How do you guys both give the same answer or whatever if we didn't know the question? But the thing is, I don't think that like it's something where we have to feel like I have the right answer. It's like both of us will come over to the actor and we'll discuss it.
Sometimes the actor figures it out. Like it's not so much if we disagree on something. It's like we're all trying to find the answer together. And sometimes when an actor sees that, they get involved as well, and it's the three of you having a discussion, and then you arrive at the best idea.
And that's usually what actors actually like the most, is that they're involved in the discussion.
Yeah,
and they're a part of the.
It's not black and white. It's not like a yes or no type thing. And like there have been there's a moment where Jason in the movie sheds a tear. It's a really good moment, and he wasn't sure if he would in that moment. And I think we spent 20 minutes discussing that, and John Lithgow was in the room, and he got involved, and we all talked about it. And it was a big discussion. In the end, he decided, yeah, you're right, I would cry in this moment, and he did, and it went over great. And then he came afterwards and said, I gave you your tear, But it was a long conversation just about that one moment,
Can I ask? I mean, if you don't feel comfortable talking about the details of that conversation, but I'm curious, what were the details of that conversation, and how does Lithgow get involved, and what does that become?
It's a little spoilery, so maybe not. But I'll just say it's like a pivotal moment in the movie, and whether or not the character would show that emotion or they would keep it in, And so I think where we arrived was you could try to keep something in, but something's still going to spill out a little bit.
But what if you felt like the movie, so Jason, this is a hypothetical scenario, but maybe this is also part of it, and this is very tangential, I'm sorry. But if he felt like the character wouldn't necessarily cry in that moment, but you guys felt for the purpose of the movie and the catharsis of that moment, you needed the character to cry. Right. How would you bridge that division where he's protective of the character, but you guys are also kind of protective of your movie in this moment?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I mean, I think that a lot of actors, and with Jason, they do understand, though, that they are making a film, and I know they want to give performances based on, like, the dramatics of the character, but there is a lot of times where Jason will actually even say to us and go, oh, you just need it for the camera? Then just say that. Tell me you just need it for the camera, and I'll look that way, Or he's very aware that, like, you're making a film, and there's things that are going to work in the cinematic language, and you could talk to him openly about that. You could say, yeah, I know you don't think the character would do this, blah, 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 but like the audience isn't going to get all those thoughts that are going through your head, and this one single tear like Dennis was saying or whatever, is going to tell them those things that are going on in your head or whatever. It's a shorthand, and he'll understand that, and he'll, and that's part of what we talked about in the discussion, and, he agreed.
Yeah. Amy especially is really good at that because Amy's done a lot of horror films, and so she understands.
She directs herself as well.
She directs and produces and writes. I mean, so the thing you'll sometimes say is you'll say, like exactly what Kevin said, like you're not going to be living with the editor for 4 months where you're staring at the scene over and over and over again, and something that we all discussed, that we've all intellectualized, sometimes won't bubble to the surface, and you need a little help doing that. And so sometimes a tear or a big gasp or something that it feels a little bigger than real life helps give the audience that shorthand.
And that's you sort of getting your just in case, right? In that moment, I mean, it's sort of like maybe we didn't write that there's a crying here, but if I get into the edit,
it's always good to have options.
And this comes off flat. I'm good. I might
you're
need
gonna
that
kill
big
You're
moment.
gonna be kicking yourself if you don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, because there are times where there are things that we didn't film, lines that we didn't film because we talked with the actors and they said, I don't think I would say this or I don't think that, and we didn't get it. And we agreed with them, and then we would be the ones, like Dennis was saying, sitting in the edit, and you'd see like this little subplot or that's happening there, and you go, I don't think it comes across. I don't think anybody knows in the audience is going to even know what's happening here. And then suddenly that line that you didn't think you needed, you go like, we should have just filmed it anyway.
And you know what? The opposite is true too, because the opposite of that is when you think you know what a scene is, and you're positive you know what the scene is, and everybody on the cast and crew knows, oh, this scene is that. Then you play it for an audience, and it plays very differently, and you go, oh, wow, no, this scene is not what we thought it's that. The audience tells you what the scene is.
I'm wondering about the scene then that in the green room I told you guys that I found was really funny.
Yeah.
And I would, no spoilers or anything, but I laughed out loud at the reaction of Jason as the actor and as the character. Was that something in the moment when you guys were filming it, you felt like this could be a kind of a laugh moment, or was it something in the edit you realized, or with the first screening audience?
I think that scene, that's the scene in the bed, was even an uncomfortable scene to read, and it was sort of just one of those like, oh my God, we're doing this. This is just a weird, messed up scene. So I don't think funny is the right word I would use. I think it's just a gallows humor. It's just like an uncomfortable, like, wow, we're really going there. We're really in this moment right now, and the audience is hopefully along for the ride at this point,
I have a gallows sense of humor, so maybe it was.
Yeah, so do we. So there we go. We made that scene for you.
I think we have some time for questions from the audience. We have two. Who has a question? Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I was wondering if you remember the first movie that scared you as a kid.
For me, it was probably Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And it was the scene where Large Marge freaks out on Pee-wee in the truck. And that scared me so much that I actually reorganized my bedroom and moved my bed against the wall, and they could only sleep with my back to the wall and my eyes facing the rest of the room, so I could see if Large Marge was going to get me. I had like a clear, view of the entire room, so I was covered. So yeah, I'm embarrassed to admit that, but that's the truth.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember the exact first one. Like, I'm real bad at timelines. People always ask, what was the first Stephen King book you read? And what was this? And I go, I remember I read a bunch as a kid, but, I don't really keep a good track of order in my head. But an early one for me was, speaking of Stephen King, was Carrie. And I hadn't even seen the whole movie. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings, so I remember having my older siblings were in the other room watching Carrie, and I was the youngest, kind of hiding in the dining room, peeking through at them and seeing kind of the sort of end scene where Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie are kind of facing off at home, and and there was some images in there that kind of stuck with me, and I won't say what they are because I don't want to spoil Carrie.
You all haven't seen Carrie by now. Come on, guys. Go home and watch Carrie.
I was terrified of the Nightmare on Elm Street boxes in the horror section of the video store when we went in there. Because there were all of these ones where it was just a bit of Freddy's face. Yeah. Like in the claws, like he was like peeking around a door or something.
Yeah, Freddy scared me a lot. I took a while before I got into Freddy. I don't know if I ever told that. I was really scared of like Hellraiser 2 Pinhead, like any sort of like horror that involved like the body getting torn or ripped or shredded. That stuff just always freaked me out.
Which is so strange because we're adults scared of that then, because I watch Freddy movies now,
right? And
they're comedies. They're just they're ridiculous comedies. Hellraiser still has a little bit of like an actual bite because it's like about sadism and it's really a fucking weird movie.
Right. Yeah.
But Freddy's just a straight up. He's just like a late night host terrorizing people.
He didn't start that way. I think the first few, and even when he's being funny though, just the imagery is just kind of gross and surreal, and just kind of gets under your skin. It's like nightmare fuel, you know. Yeah. So.
I think we have one more question from the audience.
Hello.
Hi, we have a question from online, which is how you went about choosing the cat that's featured in the film.
Okay. So in the original '89 film, it's a British short hair, and we surmised that the reason why they chose a British short hair is because the cat's name is Church, which is short for Winston Churchill, obviously the former prime minister of, England. So we said, okay, well that was a great idea. We can't do that again. We can't do what they did. In the book, it's just a black and white tomcat, like a basic American domestic short-haired cat. You can tell we have cats. We know a lot about cats. So we said, what can we do? So we actually went back to the original hardcover, the artwork on the hardcover, and it's like a long-haired Maine Coon-looking cat, And so we said, let's do that. And so then we had a kind of a problem because long-haired cats with that many colors are harder to find because you have to find like 4 to 8 of them that all look the same. Whereas if the cat's only one solid color, like an all-white cat or an all-black cat, it's easier to replicate that. But finding a long-haired cat with that many colors, such a pretty cat, was tough. And so we found the trainers. Trainers named Kirk, Jared, and Miss Melissa Millette. They'll be at the screening tonight. And
cat will be there too.
The cat will be there too. Yeah, Tonic the cat. And they went out and found rescues, and they actually found like a handful of cats that all looked the same. And then we said, yeah, but how are you going to train them though? I mean, like at this point we were like a few months out, and we always thought you couldn't train cats because, like I said, we have cats, and our apartments are a testament to the fact that you can't train a cat because our couches and our rugs are all torn to hell, But to their credit, they found these rescue cats, and in under 2 months, they trained all of them. And every cat had a different specialty. So they had the cats that could growl. They had the cat that could hiss. They had the cat that could jump, the cat that could stare, the happy cat, the evil cat. Like every cat had a different talent, And they all looked pretty similar to each other. So it was a big feat that they were able to pull off. And then because they were rescue cats, every cat was found a home afterwards. So they all ended up in with new families. So.
Even the evil cat?
Even the evil cat.
Yeah.
Who's a sweetheart in real life.
Yeah,
Leo.
He's cute.
Yeah, we love Leo. He was great.
I think I saw this, but Stephen King has been tweeting about the movie. He likes the movie. What was it like to screen it for him for the first time?
Yeah, it was stressful. Stephen King doesn't really get involved with the making of the film. He understands that film is a different language than a book, and he wants filmmakers to go off and kind of make their version of his work, and which was good because it kind of gave us a chance to kind of do what we wanted. But it makes it nerve-wracking in the end because then you heard no feedback from him the whole way, so you're just kind of presenting to him, here's what I did with your work, Mr. King. Please accept it, and then
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's like he wants to be surprised.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's real when you hear that he's sitting down to watch your movie right now. It's nerve-wracking. You're checking your phone every second, going, "Is there any update?" And you're checking your watch, going, "Oh my God, he's probably on this scene right now. He hates it. I know he's hating it." And then we heard back after the screening that he liked it, and then we were like, okay, you got any more info? And we didn't have any more info yet. And then we slowly started hearing more. And then, like you said, he started tweeting about it. And then it was just this huge weight off that he liked it. And now he continues to talk about it. So I guess he's a bigger fan than we even thought at first.
You guys haven't talked to him personally yet?
We emailed.
him.
Yeah, he sent a really nice email, really encouraging, saying how much he thought the film was great and he liked all the family stuff. And so, yeah, it was everything you could ask for. So.
Yeah, he liked the acting. No, he did. Yeah, he commented on that. He
Appreciate
really
it,
liked that we got good actors and that they really sold the family. That was his biggest.
That was really important to him, that aspect of the movie.
I mean, he's really at this point the king of horror, right?
He's been for a long time.
Yeah. Well, he's got the name.
Yeah.
It's figurative and literally.
I hate myself that I didn't get that. That's what I was saying.
It's a very fitting name, He is the king.
Guys, congratulations on the film. I think it's a wonderful adaptation. I think in many ways it surpasses the original movie. Maybe because I'm an adult now, and I don't know if the original holds up as much because I saw it when I was a kid. Right. But fantastic job. It opens this Friday. It's Pet Sematary. Give them a huge round of applause. Let's hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you.